Hello, everyone, and welcome to our week 4, our final session of Photoshop. And I am busily working on getting all of your grades done, and I am just thrilled with the work that I'm continuing to see from you all. Let me share my video. You guys are, just doing everything you should be doing. You're following directions really well. You are turning your work in on time. I've loved talking with you guys when you come to the multi-sessions on Friday and Saturday for one-on-one help. So just, I can really tell that you all are really passionate about graphic design, and your work is definitely showing it. So keep up the good work. And I am loving the great grades I'm seeing. So let's just continue this momentum and do what we need to do to get our final assignments turned in by Saturday midnight Mountain Time. And the reason why Saturday midnight Mountain Time this week is really important is because this is the final week, meaning you're going to get cut out of the class as soon as midnight Mountain Time rolls around on Saturday. So if you are in the middle of uploading your work, say 11:30 on Saturday night, and for whatever reason your internet connection is slow, or your computer is slow, or you're having troubleshooting error message issues, you're not going to be able to submit your work, and you will lose out on 185 points, which is the difference between an A and a C. So that's why I really want to stress to everyone how important it is that you maybe consider turning your work in early, because if something comes up in your personal life, maybe you have an emergency, maybe you have a family emergency, maybe you have a technological emergency that prevents you from turning your final week's assignment in on time. It seems like a lot of you guys in here have A's, and I'm sure you guys want to hold on to your A's. And if your grade drops down from an A to a C, I know you're going to be really bummed. I mean, if you're going to get a C in like your algebra class or your management class, or, one of those things that are not really connected to your major. You want your A's to be for your graphic design class, right? So, definitely be in communication with me if you also get stuck on any assignment. Let's say you're watching the class sessions, you're doing good there, and you're completing the assignment, but something comes up and you're just not able to figure something out. Email me please right away. We want to make sure that your final assignments get turned in on time. And I just want to remind all of you as well that it's my goal for each and every one of you to get the grade you want in this class, and ideally that's an A. So if you're worried that you're not going to get that A, I am more than happy to have you resubmit an assignment that you got a not so good grade on. So if you were really hoping for that A, but you've dropped down a little bit, you're in a B range, and you want to redo something and turn it in so you can get that grade bumped up to an A, by all means, talk to me, and I will be more than happy to let you resubmit your assignment so you can get the grade that you want. So the final assignments for this course are really not that difficult at all, and it should only take you maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour at the most, but it's really important that you follow directions. So do what you guys are doing now, and take notes, have a piece of paper handy by your computer as you're watching this class session. Write down the steps as I go through them, write down the shortcut keys as I call them out, and then also drop by my multi-session this week if you need one-on-one help. So I want to quickly check in with you all, since this is our last formal class session. Does anyone need any help with anything? Maybe you got stuck on your assignment last week and you need just a little assistance. Maybe you're confused about something even from a previous week, and you need just a little bit more assistance on that. This is your time. I'm more than happy to spend the first 5 minutes just going over anything that you're confused on or need help with. Oh, sure, Stephanie, what's your question? No, I teach a number of different classes. So Stephanie asked, do I only teach this class? I teach intermediate Photoshop as well, and advanced Photoshop, and sometimes I teach digital photography, and sometimes I teach the portfolio class, DES250 and DES499. So you might have me in DES250, which is the portfolio class, and you might have me in DES 323, which is the intermediate Photoshop class, and you might have me for the advanced Photoshop class. Any other questions? Cool. Well, I will move ahead then, but feel free for anyone, if at any point something comes up and you're like, I really need help with something, this is your time. Make use of your time, of my time. I am here for you. This is my job to help you, okay? So, oh, Ella says she has a hard time concentrating. That's a really important thing to mention, because that's something that, you know, a lot of us struggle with, especially when, you know, in this age where we have Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, and we have our smartphones and we have our classes. So what I would really recommend, if anyone is having trouble concentrating, definitely go and put your smartphone in the other room, lock it in the bathroom, put it in a drawer somewhere so you aren't tempted to scroll your smartphone. You know, make sure that you view my lecture full screen so that you aren't tempted to go onto a browser and check social media or anything like that. If you have a radio or TV going on in your house, get that turned off. If you have anyone living with you, make sure that you go to a room in your house that's quiet, where you can not be distracted. And ideally lock that door and let everyone know that you are busy working and to not come in and bother you. I'm lucky. I'm very much a loner, so I love living by myself. Now, but sometimes even with all of that, you might still experience some issues with, you know, maintaining focus. And that's a symptom of ADD and ADHD. And so you might want to go to your doctor and talk about any troubles that you're having concentrating, because they can prescribe some medication, which will help make it easier for you to concentrate. And they can also diagnose you for ADD or ADHD. And so, you know, go to your doctor, describe your symptoms, describe what trouble you're having, and they can definitely help you, either if it's either if it's with medication or with rehabilitation or exercises that can help your concentration. And oh, Amani just said there's an app called Forest, and it grows a tree when you don't use it. Interesting. I've heard of other apps. I personally don't have a smartphone because I find them to be distracting, but I've heard that there's other apps for concentration. And if you do a Google search for concentration app or productivity apps, there's quite a few of them. But let me know how I can continue to be of help with that. And if anyone's having any trouble, you know, either with time management or concentration or study skills, send me an email and I'll be more than happy to send you resources that can help you, you know, succeed with your classes. So this week we are making project, our final our kind of portfolio project that you'll probably use in your capstone class. And this is your chance to show off the skills that you have learned in the last 4 weeks. And a really, really important aspect of this assignment is that you understand how to make something for print and the correct sizes and file types for print, and how to make something for the web, the correct sizes and resolution and file types for the web. So for this assignment, you're going to be turning in 2 files. And those 2 files are a PDF, which is a document that's made for print, and a JPEG. So if you guys are writing notes right now, I would put at the top of your notes, 2 files due, PDF and JPEG. And pretty soon I'm going to be going step by step and showing you how to save both a PDF and a JPEG in the correct size. And it's really, really important that you follow these instructions, because it's actually a little bit more complicated and precise than it needs, than you expect it to be. That's what I meant to say. So 4 major principles of design are talked about in your week 4 discussion. And I want to really encourage you guys to check out our week 4 discussion. And the text here, the background text, it goes over contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And I want you to read through what that all means, because your discussion this week is going to ask you to pick which of these 2 designs uses the principles of contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity the best. And then I go into detail on these concepts in our pre-recorded lecture, which are available in the is available in the live sessions link. And so if you're interested in learning more, I'm going to try and see if I can get to, you know, a little bit more explanation into contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity in our class this week. But I have so much demonstration to do, I sometimes run out of time. So definitely read that prompt. Definitely then pick which of the 2 designs use those principles correctly. And then in the discussion board post, be sure to, you know, write out your explanation, explaining why you know, one design uses it better than the next design. And the reason that we're talking about these principles of design, contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, is because you want to make sure that you use them in your poster design this week, so that you have a nice, high-quality poster that you can use in your portfolio, and that can increase your chances of getting a job when you graduate, right? Because graphic design is a tough industry. There are a lot of really talented artists out there competing for a few jobs, and we want to make sure that you're able to pay off your student loans. And if you don't get a job after you graduate, then you're not going to be able to pay off your student loans, and you know, it's going to be very difficult. So we want to make sure that you get a good job so you can start paying off those student loans and you don't go in debt, and you can have the life that you want. And so that's why we are talking about the principles of design, and we want to make sure that we use them in our assignment this week. So here we are in the final week. This is a really good time to back up your work. You know, understand that your laptop is not guaranteed to always turn on. And this has happened to me more than once, where my laptop just suddenly go to start it up in the morning and it just doesn't turn on. And if your files and your design work and your homework is only located on your laptop, then you are out of luck, because you won't be able to access your files anymore if your laptop stops working. So that's why it's really important to back up your work to a secondary and ideally a third location. So you can upload your work to Google Drive. That's a really great way to be able to access your files on the cloud. You can also copy and bring your files over onto an external hard drive, which is also a really smart thing to do. And ideally, having your work in 3 locations is a good idea so that, you know, if your laptop doesn't turn on, you can access your data on your external hard drive. If your external hard drive doesn't turn on, you can access your data on Google Drive. Now, with this assignment this week, we are going to be taking our main poster project and shrinking it down to a nice small JPEG, and we're going to be submitting that small JPEG. And we're also going to be merging everything and making a PDF. And so it would be a really big bummer if you did not save your native file in the full resolution, nice large, you know, file size. And then, you know, when 2 years from now, when you go to do your capstone class, you find that, oh no, I only have a tiny 500 pixel size PSD. I don't have my full size 300 DPI PSD. What do? I have to start my project all over again. So this week, as you're working on your assignments, don't accidentally shrink your native file. You know, you're going to shrink it down, you're going to save it as a JPEG, but then make sure that you undo your shrinking and that you save your file full resolution before you exit out of Photoshop for the evening. Okay, so let's go over laying things out and making your design nice and appealing. And let's take a look at the sizes that are required for this assignment. So we're going to go to File, New, and our width is going to be 11 inches, and our height is going to be 17, and our resolution is going to be 300. And eventually we're going to convert it to a CMYK file, but for now we're going to work in RGB because RGB gives us the access to the most blending modes and adjustment layers and other filter effects. So those are the settings that we're going to use for this week's assignment: 11 inches by 17 inches, 300 DPI. Be sure to write that down. Now I'm going to show you something really cool, which is going to make your layout for your design nice and aligned and organized. And this is going to make your designs in the future nice and professional because they're going to use the principles of alignment. I know that this is kind of slightly new, and we usually don't like to add new material in week 4 because we want you to synthesize what you've learned in the past 3 weeks. But this is so easy, I think you'll be able to get it. But if it is confusing at all, I don't want this to stop you from doing your assignment. You can certainly do your assignment without using alignment, but this is going to make your assignment much stronger. Okay, and so the thing that we're going to use is guides and grids. And this is the kind of the last thing that you're going to learn in the class, guides and grids. And the first thing you have to know in order to use guides and grids is that there is a ruler in Photoshop. So if you look up here at the top of the screen, there is this ruler up here and this ruler on the side. If you do not see those rulers for some reason, for whatever reason, go ahead and hit Command R if you're on a Mac or Control R if you're on a PC. And what you see there is the ruler goes away and comes back if you hit Command R, okay? So if you don't see your rulers, you can hit Command R and that will bring them up. And so that's a shortcut key that you definitely want to write down. Command R, write that in your notes, or Control R if you're on a PC. Now watch what we can do here. If I click on this ruler and drag down, I'm creating a guideline. And what I'm making here is a nice little 1/4 inch margin around my document. So I'm going to click up here on this ruler and I'm going to drag down, and I'm dragging down this guideline that is creating a nice little 1/4 inch margin around my document. And what this little 1/4 inch margin is going to do is remind me not to put any images or text too close to the edge of my document, because usually about a 1/4 inch gets cut off by the printer whenever you're printing something out. So having this little 1/4 inch margin around my document will remind me all the important stuff needs to stay inside these guidelines. Now, something else that's going to be really useful for me is to figure out where the exact center of my document is, because I want to put a visual element in the center, and I want to make sure it's perfectly aligned to the center. So I'm going to use something called a grid to help me find the center of my document. So to find that grid, I'm going to go up to the Photoshop up at here at the very, very top of my screen where it says Photoshop CC. And then I'm going to click on Preferences. And then I'm going to click on Guides, Grid, and Slices. Guides, Grid, and Slices. Now, I had already had my grid line set up to every 50%, but when you open up Photoshop for the first time, you will likely have a grid line every 1 inch. And I have mine set to kind of this greenish color. You will probably have kind of a gray color for your grid lines. Now I'm going to click OK, and right now you're not seeing my grid yet. The shortcut key to bring up the grid is Command apostrophe, which is, and your apostrophe is located above the Shift key. You can also access the grid by going the long way, by going up to View, Show, Grid. So definitely write that down in your notes. View, Show, Grid. Write that down in your notes, or Command apostrophe. Now, this has given me a grid line every 1 inch, but this is actually not what I wanted. I want to see the exact center of my document. So if I go to Photoshop, Preferences, Guide, Grid, and Slices, and I change my settings, so instead of having a grid line every 1 inch, I choose percent instead of inches, percent instead of inches, and I change it to grid line every 50%, and then click OK. And now I have the exact center of the document. And if I don't want these grid lines anymore, I can Command apostrophe and Command apostrophe. And if I want to just see the guides, you know, if I'm just using the grid line to create a guide, I can click and drag out these guidelines. Oops. And see how I accidentally moved the guideline and I didn't get it in the right place? You can use the Move tool to click and drag and move the guideline into the correct place. Okay, so now I have just the guides that I want. And I can click Command apostrophe and it makes my grid go away, and now I just have my guidelines. So I can easily, you know, start to lay out my document using these guides that I've created. Now, it's important to remember that these guides are not design elements. They're imaginary lines that are going to help me figure out where my design elements are going to go and where my text is going to go, and they're going to be helpers, and they're going to help me make sure that everything is aligned and organized in a really nice way. Alrighty, so I am gonna, I'll start with a design element right in the center. And for the purposes of this assignment, you need to have a total of 3 photo elements. And the trick is figuring out how you can get 3 elements combined together in a really interesting way. You know, you don't want to just have 3 random photos just like floating around your design, because that's not graphic design. That, you know, that's kindergarten. So what I'm going to do is composite my photo elements into a heart shape. And so you are welcome to use whatever shape you want. You know, think about how we can bring this all together. So I'm going to hold down the Shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle, make a nice little heart shape. I'll hit V on my keyboard to bring up the Move tool, and I'll just kind of move my heart into place. And now I can start to bring in some photo elements, right? So I'm going to make a new layer, and I'll go to File, Place Embedded. This is how we bring photos into Photoshop. File, Place Embedded. And what do I have? I have this little guy. He'll go over here. You're going to see what I'm doing in just a second. File, Place Embedded. And then File, Place Embedded. Trying to remember what animal pictures I have here. There we go. So I have placed all of these photo elements so that they all are overlapping that heart shape. And then what I'm going to do is clip them using a clipping mask, which is a tool that you guys learned last week, inside the heart. And then I'm going to blend them so they all look appealing. So I'm going to first hold down the Alt or Option button. This is kind of confusing because I've had a couple of people come into the multi-session for help with this. And so I really want you all to pay very, very close attention. Pay very, very close attention. What I'm doing is I'm placing my cursor over the line between the heart-shaped layer and the animal layer. And then I'm holding down the Alt or Option button on my keyboard. So Alt if you're on a PC, Option if you're on a Mac. And then I'm just clicking once on my trackpad with my finger. And what that is doing is it's clipping the animal picture inside the heart. So I'm going to do the same for the lamb. I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option button. Alt if you're on a PC, Option if you're on a Mac. I'm hovering my cursor over the line between the 2 animal layers. And now I'm clicking once with my finger on the trackpad. And I'm letting go right away. And now one last time, there we go. So a little problem here is that, you know, all the pictures are overlapping. So we need to use masking, which we learned last week, to erase them, and so we can create nice blended layers. So first, I'm going to go to the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. Square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the layer panel. I'm going to get my brush out, my paint brush. B is the shortcut key for the brush. Write this down, B for brush. I'm going to go up to the top of the screen, and I'm going to make sure that my hardness is all the way down to 0. And then I'm going to increase the size of my brush using the bracket keys, which are located right next to the letter P on your keyboard. If you look straight down at your keyboard, the left bracket makes your brush smaller, the right bracket makes your brush bigger. I'm making my brush nice and big. And now watch, as I paint straight down, I'm creating a blend. I'm erasing part of the picture so I can see what's underneath. And so the two pictures are blending together. And now same for the lamb picture. I'm going to click on the lamb layer here, and then I'm going to go to the square with the circle inside of it at the bottom of the screen. And then with my paintbrush, I'm going to paint and erase. And this lets us know that we just need to move our little capybara over a little bit. So I'm going to click on him. I'm going to hit V for my move tool and just gently move this one over. And it looks like I just need to erase a little bit more of the fox. So I'm going to click on the layer mask next to the fox layer. Remember, the layer mask is that black and white shape next to the image layer. And I'm going to click on it, and I know it's clicked and I know it's selected because it's got these little white brackets around it. Now I'm going to hit B for brush and paint, 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 paint. Ta-da! Now we have all our photo elements combined together inside that heart shape, and it's an effective way to meet that requirement of having 3 separate photo elements, but also show off your skills by using clipping masks and using layer masks to get them to all blend together. So now we need to have text on here. So I'm going to use my guidelines to create a nice little area for my text. I'm going to go over here to my ruler, and I'm going to click and drag. And then let go. So see now I have that guideline right on the edge of my heart. And I'm going to click this guideline right on the edge of the heart. So now I can put text in here, and I can make sure that my text is going to line up nicely with my heart. Oh, Starla is asking a question that I've gotten from other students before. Can we use your own photos, the ones that you've taken yourself? The problem is, in the past, I've allowed students to use their own photos, and students end up using very blurry, low resolution, low quality photos that end up making their design look really bad. And so I'm going to say you are welcome to use your own photos, but be aware if you use blurry, low resolution, low quality photos, not only are you going to get a not so good grade, but you're going to also miss out on the opportunity to make a high quality portfolio piece that can, catch the eye of potential employers. So please, please make sure if you do use your own photos, they are high quality, high resolution, nice and crisp and well exposed and not grainy, not blurry. So just be aware of that. Now what I'm going to do is get my text out. And I want to make sure that I use text that is bold and that can be easily seen from far away. So I'm going to use a sans serif font called Impact, which is a very bold sans serif font. And then I'm going to make sure that I resize it so that it fits with alignment on this heart shape. So right now it's not aligning, so I need to go over here to my Move tool, which is this arrow tool here. Once I click on my Move tool, then I can hit Command T, write that down, Command T. Then I can hold down the Shift button, click and drag at a diagonal angle while holding down the Shift button. And then you want to make sure that the B in Be Kind lines up with, or whatever your slogan is, lines up with the edge of your imagery. So now I have a nice straight vertical line from the B down to the edge of the heart. And I have a nice straight vertical line from the D down to the edge of the heart. Now I'm going to hit Enter or Return. And you'll learn when you do your reading this week in the discussion, you'll see why alignment is so important to creating an appealing design. So now I'm going to move my cursor here. I'm going to get my Move tool out. I'm going to hit Command T. I'm going to hold down the Shift button. Hold down the Shift button while I resize. And now notice how the letter S is lining up with the edge of the heart and the D, and the letter B is lining up with the edge of the heart and the T. Nirel is asking, for this assignment, we can't add graphics. Can we use adjustment layers for this assignment? You are welcome to add graphics, but keep in mind 3 photo elements are required, and a graphic is not a photo element. So if you have 3 photo elements and graphics, it's going to start to look really, really cluttered. So I would say, you know, make a nice, clean design. Definitely, yeah, use adjustment layers, use blending modes, but, you know, meet the minimum requirements, but don't make a design that ends up looking cluttered. Now, the last thing is the assignment requires you to have a website URL on there. So you guys get to just make up a website URL that you think would be appropriate for whatever your concept is. I'm going to go ahead and make a new layer. I'm going to get my text tool out. I am going to shrink my font down a little bit, and I want to use a font that is going to not compete with Impact. So Helvetica New Fin would be really good. And I'm going to hover my cursor over the center line, and I'll just have a website URL. And I'm just making one up, www.bekind.org. Now, for design purposes, you're not going to have HTTP : www. Don't have like the whole HTTP on there. Don't have tons of backslashes. A website URL never has a space in it. And website URLs also don't have capital letters. So please, no capital letters, no HTTP, no backslashes, keep your website URL nice and minimal. Okay, so let's say we're ready to save this now. The first thing that we want to do is save the native file format. And we're not turning in the native file format, we're simply saving it so that we can then make adjustments to our project later. So I can go File, Save As, And, you know, we're going to go to our schoolwork folder, DES104_week4 underscore your name. Not turning in that PSD, simply saving it. Oh, I already have one. I'm going to call this B. Now we're going to follow all of the steps to save the correct PDF and JPEG that's required for this assignment. So please, please be sure to write notes on these next steps because they're very, very important. So get out your pencil, get out your paper, and the first thing we're going to do is save a PDF. And so write in your notes right now how to save a PDF and circle it, okay? So step one, what we have to do is rasterize all of our layers. So we're gonna go up to Layer, Rasterize all layers, okay? Layer, rasterize all layers. Next, we are going to create a merged layer of all of our layers. So I'm going to hit Shift, Command, Option, E. Write that down. Shift, Command, Option, E. And what that has done is it's merged all of our layers together without deleting them, making a top merged layer. Shift, Command, Option, E if you're on a Mac. Shift, Control, Alt, E if you're on a PC. Does everyone have that? Now we're going to go up to Image at the top of the screen. We're going to go to Mode, and we're going to change it to CMYK. So write that down. Image, Mode, CMYK. And then click Don't Flatten. And then click OK. Now we're going to go to File, Save As, and we're going to select where it says Format. We're going to select Photoshop PDF. Photoshop PDF. And this is really, really important, guys. The next step is, see where there's a check mark that says Layers? We're going to uncheck Layers. Uncheck Layers. Sure. So the last step is, as in, we go to File, Save As. So File, Save As, Format, Photoshop, PDF. File, Save As, Format, Photoshop, PDF. And then uncheck Layers. Make sure Layers is not checked. Write that down. Make sure Layers is not checked. And then hit Save. And this is really important. You want to have smallest file size selected from the drop-down menu up at the top of the screen. Smallest file size. And really, really important, make sure Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities is not checked. See how it's blank? Leave it not checked. Do not check Preserve Photoshop Editing Capabilities. So smallest file size. It's very important that you do all that or else it's not going to show up in the gradebook properly. Okay? And now we're going to hit Save PDF. All right, so you need to rasterize your layers. You need to create a merged layer. You need to change your image mode to CMYK. And then you need to save it as a PDF. Okay, after we've saved that PDF, we can then undo everything that we've done because, you know, we no longer need the rasterized layer. We no longer need the CMYK. And it's better to have it as big as it can be. So we're going to do step backwards, which is Option Command Z, Option Command Z once, Option Command Z again, that got rid of my merged layer. Option Command Z once got rid of the CMYK. Option Command Z again got rid of the merged layer. Option Command Z again got rid of the rasterized layers. Okay, so now we're back to where we were before we saved the PDF. And now what we're going to do is save the JPEG. Okay, so to save the JPEG, we're going to go to Image, Image Size, because the assignment asks you to shrink down your JPEG to 500 pixels on its shortest side. So we're going to go to Image, Image Size. And the first thing we're going to change is the resolution. So right now the resolution is 300. We're going to change the resolution to 72. And then the second thing we're going to do after changing the resolution to 72 is we're going to change the shortest side, which is 792. We're going to change it to 500. And if you have a lock between your width and height, then you'll see the height automatically changes to 773. If your height did not change to 773, then you need to go in and make sure that that's changed by hand, or else you're going to end up with an image that's very, very stretched looking. Okay. So your final sizes before you save the JPEG is going to be 500 by 773. And now we're going to click OK. So it's a small file right now, and you might be thinking, oh no, it's too small. But see, we're viewing it at 25%. See where it says 25% up there? If you hit Command plus sign, Command plus sign, Command plus sign, Command plus sign, now we're at 100%. And you can see it's actually, you know, a decent web size graphic. So next we're going to save the JPEG, and we're going to do that by going to File, Export, Save for Web, File, Export, Save for Web. And right now it's on GIF. We want to save as a JPEG. JPEG high is fine. And then we're going to hit save. We're going to save that JPEG. So those are the two files that you're going to submit, a JPEG and a PDF. And remember what I said about don't accidentally shrink your native file? Well, if we were to exit out of Photoshop now and save it the way it is, we would have shrunken our native file, because our PSD right now is shrunk down to 500 pixels on its shortest side. We want, before we exit out of Photoshop for the evening, we want to make sure that it's back to the full resolution version it was before we shrunk it. And so I'm going to Command Z and Option Command Z. And now it is back to full resolution. Check our image mode. We're in RGB color. Now we can Command S to save it, and we can exit out of Photoshop, and we know that our PSD is going to be nice and large and full resolution. Oh, by the way, I left my guidelines on here, but if you want to see what your design looks like without the guidelines, just hit Command semicolon to make your guidelines go away and come back, like that. Any questions? I'm gonna be demonstrating in just a little bit how to make this a little bit fancier with some adjustment layers, maybe a little texture, maybe a little color effects. But I thought first we want to talk about fonts a little bit. Fonts are the typefaces that you use for design. And you might be wondering why I used Impact. Well, there is a reason behind all these fonts. And you want to make sure that you use the correct font for the correct project. So I have a little short, cute video that will kind of help you kind of understand what's going on with all of these different fonts and why you would use some of them and not others.
Type is power. The power to express words and ideas visually. It's timeless, but always changing. And that's what we're going to explore. Most people agree that the creator of typography was a German man named Johannes Gutenberg, and yes, he wore a hat like that. Before Gutenberg came along and revolutionized the world of communication, books needed to be scribed by hand, usually by monks, which was very time-consuming and expensive. So Gutenberg created blackletter, the first ever typeface, modeled after the writing of the scribes. Blackletter has thick vertical lines and thin horizontal connectors, which made it great for scribing, but it looked very dense and squished together when printed. Something needed to change. Enter Roman type. This particular typeface is Cambria, which you're probably used to seeing on your word processor, but the first ever Roman typeface was created in the 15th century by the Frenchman Nicolas Jenson. This is his typeface right here. Jenson worked mainly in Venice, Italy, and was inspired by the lettering found on ancient Roman buildings. His letter forms were based on straight lines and regular curves. This made them very clear and legible compared to the dense darkness of blackletter. This legible new typeface was an instant success, and quickly spread across Europe, riding on the coattails of the Renaissance. The next major innovation in typography after Roman letters was italics, which are like slanted and stylized versions of Roman type. They were created in the late 15th century by Aldus Manutius from Italy as a way of fitting more letters onto the page and saving money. Now we use italics interspersed in Roman type for emphasis. Aldus Manutius also created the modern comma and semicolon, but that's another story. Type development stayed fairly stagnant until the 18th century in England when William Caslon created a typeface that set a new standard for legibility. While it wasn't anything radical, it was just what the world was looking for. The style of Caslon's typeface is now referred to as Old Style. A few decades later, another Brit named John Baskerville created a new variety of typeface, which we call transitional. Later still, a Frenchman named Didot and an Italian named Bodoni created typefaces that we have classified as modern. Most serif typefaces fit into one of these three categories, but what does each category mean? An old-style typeface has letters that have thick serifs and low contrast between thick and thin strokes. A transitional typeface has letters with thinner serifs and a higher contrast between thick and thin strokes. And a modern typeface has letters with very thin serifs and extreme contrast between thick and thin strokes. Next, William Caslon's great-grandson, named William Caslon IV, got sick of all of these serifs, so he decided to remove them entirely and made a new kind of typeface, called a sans serif. It didn't catch on immediately, but would eventually get really big. During the Second Industrial Revolution, advertising created a need for new typefaces. Letters were made taller. and wider, mainly used in large sizes on posters and billboards. Things got pretty weird, but one happy result of all of this experimentation is Egyptian, or slab serif. It has really thick serifs and is usually used for titles. As a backlash to the complexity found in typefaces of the 19th century, the early 20th century brought something simple. Paul Renner from Germany created a typeface called Futura, and it was based on simple geometric shapes. This is called the geometric sans. Around the same time, a British man named Eric Gill created a typeface called Gill Sans that was similar to a geometric sans, but with gentler, more natural curves, and this is called a humanist sans. The next major step in the world of sans serifs happened in Switzerland in 1957 with the introduction of Helvetica. It has simple curves and is available in many different weights, and some would call it the world's favorite typeface. The world of typography changed forever with the introduction of the computer. There were a few difficult years of crude pixel type due to the primitive screen technology. But then technology evolved and computers began to allow for the creation of thousands of beautiful typefaces. And the odd dud. But now anyone has the freedom to create their own unique typeface. And that is the history of typography.
Alrighty, so you can see after watching that video why I went with Impact, which is a very bold sans serif font that can be seen from far away. And that's your goal with a poster. You know, think about, what do you want people to look at first? Do you want people to look at the image or the text first? And then you want that text to be really easy to see from far away. So you know, if you have a roommate or if you have someone that's living with you, you know, maybe put your computer across the room and have someone read your poster from far away and see if it's easy for them to read. A common mistake that some students make is they aren't happy with the kind of a light colored background, and so they end up trying to put like a colored background. And really quickly, things can start to get very, very hard to read as you have gradients or multicolored backgrounds, right? And this is a very common mistake. And I will say you have lack of contrast if you design this way, resulting in a design that's really hard to read and very unprofessional looking. So that's why I think the best posters have either a black background or a white background. And because then you can put either black text or very light text. If you must have some kind of colored background, never use a gradient. Instead, you know, you can use kind of a very, very light color from up here. You know, you can even have a little blue there. And then for your text, in order to make sure that your text is easy to read, you need to make sure that you have good contrast. So if you change the text color, make sure that that text color is going to be from, you know, down here somewhere, like a little bit of blue. So notice my text is from way down here, my background is from way up here, and that contrast is going to help this be easy to read. Now, if you want to put like a little vignette like we've been doing on our images, you can certainly do that, but you know, you want to put those gradients in the corners. So I am just going to paint a little vignette in the corners using a very large soft brush. And just kind of painting the vignette helps to give it kind of this natural kind of handmade look, which is kind of cool. And then you can also lower the opacity, and you just have kind of a gentle little vignette on your design. Something else that you can do is play with layer styles. So let's say I wanted to make this heart shape a different color. I can double click on this heart shape on the blank area next to the heart layer, and I can click on color overlay, put this on red, and so that's what the red looks like on the hard light blending mode. This is what it looks like on overlay, and this is what it looks like on color. Something else that might be good is multiply. A little bit on the dark, spooky side. I kind of like the color blending mode. And then maybe just lower the opacity just a little bit. And something else you can do is you're welcome to use adjustment layers. I'm going to go up to my topmost layer. I'm going to click on the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other. And I'm going to click on hue saturation. Now I can drag my hue saturation slider around and I can see what my design will look like in different colors, which can be fun. I can also choose colorize and then see what my design would look like monochromatic. Alrighty, and then the final thing that you can do is apply a texture to the whole thing. And we're going to be learning for our assessment a little bit about textures. And you can find textures, all over the internet. You can even make them yourself by taking pictures of interesting fabric patterns or interesting textures that you see. And so I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, and bring in a little paper texture. So I've placed this image of paper. Nyrel asked, can the photo texture be one of the photo elements? Yes, absolutely. If your texture is a photo, then yes. Like this is a photo of paper. So I brought that in, and now I'm going to hold down the Shift button and resize. Notice that I stretched this to make it bigger, but still I'm under 100%. So you are more than welcome to stretch any of your textures, any of your photos as much as you want, but it can't go over 100%. The numbers have to stay under 100%. Now I hit enter or return to place it. And now I can play with different blending modes. So right now I will change my blending mode from normal to overlay. And so this is what overlay looks like. With overlay, the texture is going to show up mostly in the midtones. And so the shadows stay nice and crisp, and the highlights stay nice and crisp. Oh, sure, Kyra, I'd love to help you. And you can also try hard light, which makes the texture show up in all of the different values, but it's a little bit intense. So lowering hard light down tends to work a little bit better. Kira, do you want to go ahead and share your screen and show me what you're having trouble with your text? Okay, you need to make a new layer first. So go ahead and open up Photoshop and then make a new layer. Good. And click anywhere on your document. And right now your font is at 12 points, so it might be really, really small. So it might help to see it a little bit better if you, increase the size. And then click and start typing. There you go. So you might want to make it a little bit bigger so that it's easier to read. Good. Okay, glad we solved that problem. Excellent. So yeah, no problem at all. So some of you, when you're starting your project, you might be wondering like, where do I start? How do I come up with a concept for my design? You might be thinking you want to do something original. You might want to go to Pinterest and do a search for designs that might inspire you for this project. And you can also go to Google for design ideas that might inspire you. For instance, the Ad Council is a company that's been around for a long time that comes up with social ad campaigns and social issue campaigns. And they have tons of billboards and they have tons of posters that you can look at for inspiration. You can also just go on Google and do a search for social issue campaign and see all the different posters and campaigns that might be interesting to kind of mimic and copy. And of course, you're not going to steal these images. You're not going to just straight up copy someone else's design, but you're going to use it as inspiration. So yeah, if you want to do like an anti-abuse poster, you're more than welcome to take someone's picture and put bruises on their face. I have a tutorial if you want to email me that I can send you that I made on like how to make someone look like they have bruises on their face and scars, and that's something you can totally do. You can go to Pinterest and also do a search. Like I said, Pinterest is great. You can see all of these different social issue campaigns that might be inspiring for you. Every time I start a design project, I always, you can't just look at a blank page and think, okay, I'm going to come up with a brilliant idea. So before I begin, I always do some research. I always, look at designs that are inspiring to me. I make a Pinterest board of things that I like. And then I kind of use them as a jumping off point for inspiration. Something else that you can do is there's a website called the designinspiration.com, which like every day they update with different designs that are really inspiring. And so you can see all of these different design ideas that are really inspiring and interesting. Oh, Tiffany, I already made a video on how to put bruises on someone. So if you email me, I can just send you the link to it. Okay, so I thought before we move on to your assessment, I'd show you a professional designer and his approach to coming up with design ideas. And he does some really interesting things with typography. So take a look. This is Chip Kidd, who is a very famous book cover designer. And he's going to talk a little bit about his process for coming up with ideas.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have devoted the past 25 years of my life to designing books. first day of my graphic design training at Penn State University, the teacher, Lanny Samis, came into the room, and he drew a picture of an apple on the blackboard and wrote the word apple underneath. And he said, "Okay, lesson 1, listen up." And he covered up the picture, and he said, "You either say this," and then he covered up the word, "or you show this. But you don't do this. Because this is treating your audience like a moron." Augustine Burroughs wrote a memoir called This, and it's about his time in rehab. In his 20s, he was a hotshot ad executive, and as Mad Men has told us, a raging alcoholic. He did not think so, however, but his co-workers did an intervention, and they said, "You are going to rehab, or you will be fired and you will die." Now, to me, this was always going to be a typographic solution, what I would call the opposite of Type 101. What does that mean? Usually on the first day of Introduction to Typography, you get the assignment of select a word and make it look like what it says it is. So that's Type 101, right? Very simple stuff. This is going to be the opposite of that. I want this book to look like it's lying to you, desperately and hopelessly, the way an alcoholic would. The answer was the most low-tech thing you can imagine. I set up the type, I printed it out on an Epson printer with water-soluble ink, taped it to the wall, and threw a bucket of water at it. Presto. Then when we went to press, the printer put a spot gloss on the ink, and it really looked like it was running. Not long after it came out, Augustine was waylaid in an airport, and he was hiding out in the bookstore, spying on who was buying his books. And this woman came up to it, and she squinted, and she took it to the register, and she said to the man behind the counter, "This one's ruined." And the guy behind the counter said, "I know, lady, they all came in that way." Now that's a good printing job.
Okay, so I'm hoping you guys will put an equal amount of creativity and thought into how you do your typography. But please do, don't go overboard. You don't want to have something called fontitis, where you have 3 or 4 different fonts on one design. You want your typography to be supporting what it is that you are designing, right? So someone was asking about where do you go for stock images. Well, we use Google, but you can't just go on Google Image and do an image search, because some of these are copyright protected. Oh, Nyrel asked what was his name again. It's Chip Kidd, and that's spelled chip, like potato chip, and Kidd, K-I-D-D, with 2 Ds. He's a famous book cover designer. So when you go on Google, you need to make sure that you only find and use license-free images for your designs. So after you go to the Google image search, you're going to click on the button that says Tools, and then you're going to click on Usage Rights, and you're going to click Labeled for Reuse with Modification. Labeled for reuse with modification. And now this is going to give you all of the images that you have permission to use. But keep in mind, because we're making a poster, we want to make sure that we use large, high-resolution images. So we're going to go to Size, and ideally you would click on either large or larger than 4 megapixels. So that would be a good size for print. And then Wikimedia Commons is the easiest because you don't have to sign up for an account or anything. And you just click on the image that you want to use, and then click on it again, because when you download it, you need to make sure that you're downloading the largest, highest full resolution version. And so see, when you view it this big, you can see all the little details on the hair. You will then Control-click, save image as, and then save it to your desktop. If you were to just download this little image here, that's the small preview image, and you'll end up with something that's small and kind of fuzzy and not going to look good. So please do make sure that you view everything as big as it can be before you download it so that you get the highest resolution one. Alrighty, and for your assignment, please do make sure that you take a look at the rubric and you meet all the requirements of the rubric. You want to make sure that you submit both that PDF and that JPEG made the correct size. And you want to make sure that you meet all of these requirements before you turn it in, okay? And see, you have a lot of images to choose from this little library here. And these are all high resolution, they're all crisp and clean. So, I would recommend, choosing a slogan from the list of slogans, choosing the images available here, because then the slogan is spelled correctly and your images are nice and crisp and clean. Because I hate to take off points for spelling errors, but the thing is I always have to do it at least once a semester, because if you have a poster that has something spelled wrong on it, you're not going to be able to use it for your portfolio, and you're not going to be able to get a job with it. So please double, triple, quadruple check and make sure that everything is spelled correctly. Now your assessment. So a really important thing about this assessment is there is one image in here that's going to give you problems. And the reason that we put that kind of challenging image in there is to make sure that you guys are watching your class recordings and following the steps. Because if you don't follow the steps in this class recording, you're not going to be able to utilize Texture 2, and you're going to have difficulty with it. So with this assessment, you are practicing getting everything to align correctly, and you're practicing your adjustment layers and blending modes. So you're going to download this image here just by click on the link. And then you're going to download the 4 textures. And last one. Okay, and you'll notice that Texture 2 is an EPS file. Okay, so Texture 2 needs to be converted to a JPEG before you use it. This is a common issue that you're going to have to learn how to work with as a graphic designer, so it's really important that you learn how to convert images now. So what I'm going to do is Control-click on Texture 2. Be sure to write down all these steps. So Control-click on Texture 2, and then click Open with Adobe Photoshop. Now, this is really important. This is where you are going to set the size for your JPEG. And we're going to select pixels. And we're going to make it 5,000 pixels by 5,000 pixels. And we're going to go OK. And now it's going to take Photoshop a little while to rasterize the file to make it into an image file. And then we're going to save it as a JPEG. Does anyone need me to do this again? I'll be happy to do it again. Alrighty. So you just have to wait for it to finish rasterizing. And now we're going to save it. So I'm going to go to File, Save As. And from the Format drop-down box here, I'm going to select JPEG. And then I'm going to hit Save. And then I'm going to click OK. So I had a request to do this again. So I want everyone to get out your pencils and get out your pens, and I'm going to show you how to convert the EPS file one more time. So here it is in the downloads box. It's called texture2.eps. I'm going to open it in Photoshop by going to I'm holding down the Control button. If you're on a Mac, you're going to hold down Control. If you have a PC, you're going to right-click on it. Control if you're on a Mac, right-click if you're on a PC. And then I'm going to click Open with Adobe Photoshop. Control-click Open with Adobe Photoshop, or right-click Open with Adobe Photoshop. This window will open automatically. And in this window, you're going to change inches to pixels. Inches to pixels. And we're going to change the width and the height to 5,000. And then I'm going to click OK. And then we wait for it to rasterize. Any questions? Does anyone want me to do this again? Okay, perfect. Alrighty, now we're gonna do the assignment. So the assignment asks you to open this image file into Photoshop. So notice I didn't make a new document. I just went File, Open, and I browsed to this image file. And then I click the Open button. Does everyone have that in your notes? Cool. Now what we're going to do is place the textures over each square. So I'm going to click on the ruler, and I'm going to click and drag. Command + sign to zoom in, and I'm going to make sure that my guideline is right on the line between the squares. And I'm making another guideline right on the line between the squares. And those guidelines are going to be helpful because it will allow our textures to snap. So Command + sign and zoom in really, really close to place those guidelines. Now I'm going to go to File, place embedded. And I'm going to place my texture, holding down the shift button, always holding down the shift button. See how I accidentally let go of the shift button and the width and the height got changed a little bit. So I need to make sure that my width and the height always stay exactly the same. Zoom in really, really close. I'm just moving. Command plus sign is really, really close. I need to make absolutely certain that my texture stays on the right square. Alrighty. So we have this texture now that is mostly black and white, and we get to pick whatever blending mode we want. And the goal with our blending modes is to choose blending modes that are gonna like really show up the texture. Because some of them, like let's say you were to put this on like the color blending mode, it doesn't really do, the color blending mode doesn't really do much for us there. But if we were to put it, say, on screen, now that does look cool. It makes it look nice and sparkly. And screen, I go over all the different blending modes and what they do in our pre-recorded lecture. But screen makes black transparent and white opaque. It's kind of the opposite of multiply. Multiply makes black opaque and white transparent. You can also hard light. It's going to look really sparkly. Vivid light. Linear light. We have a lot of different blending modes that we can use here. I think I really like screen or hard light. Now I'm going to go File, Place Embedded, and place the next texture. This is the JPEG that we made. And I see this texture has a lot of blue, a lot of black. Command plus sign to zoom in really, really close. Enter or return. And now I can play with maybe using multiply. Multiply will make that black really show through. I can use overlay. Overlay will make the black on the midtones look kind of high contrast. I could use color burn. That's kind of cool. Feel free to play with the blending modes and use whatever one you think looks best. Now I'm going to go File, Place in. Sorry, I accidentally clicked Search Adobe Stock. So I'm going to go File, Place Embedded. Now this is this kind of shimmery sort of gold foil. And we really don't want any of our textures to overlap because it will make those seams look really visible. So some things we can play with a gold foil include like screen, which is kind of nice. Color dodge, kind of makes it washed out. Linear dodge. Color burn, that's kind of cool. Linear burn. Ooh, I like linear burn. Makes it look really shiny. And now file, place embedded, the last one. And I know this is a very, very light paper texture. And so, you know, if you put this on like overlay or something, it's not going to show up at all on the shift button. So with this paper texture, in order to make it really show up, you want to make sure that you really pick the right blending mode. Enter, return. So some that have worked in the past, I want to say vivid light or pin light. So vivid light, not so much. Linear light. Yeah, I think, was it pin light? Yeah, pin light looks good because you get that paper texture showing through, and you also get the tree showing through. What was linear light again? Yeah, linear light just didn't do anything for us. Vivid light didn't do anything for us. Pin light. Okay, and then the final step on this is to use the hue saturation adjustment layer to change the color. So I can go to the circle that's light on one side, dark on the other, at the bottom of the layer panel. Click on hue saturation. If you want, you can click on colorize and make everything monochromatic like that. That's totally fine. Or if you want to just move your hue slider around and then just make everything a different color, that's fine too. I personally like colorize. I like it all monochromatic like this. It's kind of cool. It's kind of a work of art. Now, what we can do is we always want to save our native file format, which is the .psd. And you do that by going to File, Save As, find our folder, Format, Photoshop, Layers, Save. But what you're going to be turning in for this assignment is a JPEG. Make sure that you follow the instructions that are in the classroom, and make sure that because it says here very clearly, save as JPEG. Save as JPEG. So we're going to go to File, Export, Save for Web. It asks for the quality to be 100, so we're going to type in 100 for the quality. And then we're going to hit Save. Alrighty, you guys. Any questions on this or anything previous or anything at all that you might be having trouble with just yet? Cool. So you guys are on your way to finishing up your first design class. And, I really, really want you guys to save this work because I think you can definitely use it in your portfolio. And I want to give you guys a chance to kind of see what you're going to be working towards as, as graphic designers. So I put together a little video that shows you what you can bring to your first graphic design interview. And then if we have a little time, I'll show you a student portfolio. And then I will see you, I guess, on Friday if you decide to come into the multi-session. and get some one-on-one help. And I'll see you in the discussion board as well. So have a look. This is some things that you can bring to your graphic design interview. Hey, you guys. So I want to do a little show and tell with you all today. I have some things that I bring to interviews, and I hope that you guys get these various items made, and so that you can bring them to your interviews and have a lot of success on your job search. So this first thing I'm going to show you is what I call the Leave Behind portfolio. There you go. And this is what I get printed at lulu.com, and it has all of my artwork in it, my favorite artwork, let's say that. And this is then something that I can leave with the client or employer that I'm interviewing with. They're really inexpensive. They're between $10 and $20 for each one to get printed. And so you can get a stack of these made, plenty of them, take a look. And then when you go on job interviews, you can leave this with the people that you're interviewing with. And even if they don't hire you, maybe they find someone else whose style is a little bit better fit for their project, they're going to have another project come up. And they're going to remember you because this is going to sit on their shelf. It's way too nice to throw away. And they'll think, oh, that person's style is a much better fit for this project that we're working on. So they're going to give you a call, and this is just a great way to stay in someone's memory by leaving these with the people that you interview with. Now, another thing I get made are these postcards, and I get these made at overnightprints.com. On one side, let's see, it has my contact info, and on the other side it has my artwork. And these are nice and big and colorful, and so they're not going to be stuffed into someone's purse and forgotten about. These might go on someone's fridge or on someone's bulletin board in their office. And then when they have a project come up, they're going to look at your artwork hanging there, and they're going to give you a call. So get a bunch of these made, overnightprints.com. Really inexpensive, and you can get the rounded edges, you can get the shiny on one side, the matte on the other side, and these will be something that you will use to stay in someone's mind when they're hiring for projects. Now, I also have my actual big printed, carrying case portfolio that has all of my artwork mounted on these, I guess you could say, kind of hard mat board or cardstock. I don't print these and make them myself. I get all of my artwork together on a disc or a CD, and then when I'm ready to get it printed, I'll go to Kinko's or Staples, and I just ask them to print it and mount it on black mat board and cut it, so it's all nice and pretty. And all of my pieces together to get printed and mounted only costed like $100. And you have these forever, and as you make art that gets better and better, you can start to throw away or give away the pieces that you don't need anymore and replace them with the pieces that you do like. And yeah, so just carry this in a little carrying case, when you go to your interviews. Take out each of these pieces individually and pass them around the table with the people that you're interviewing with, so that they can look at them up close, and they can pass them and talk about them with their colleagues and everything. And then the next thing is, of course, your resume, and you're going to want to get some nice, clean, good-looking resume paper. Staples, Kinko's, you can get this a lot of places. And this is a resume paper that has texture to it, and it's got some thickness to it, and you want to print out tons of copies of your resume, because you're going to go from job interview to job interview. You're going to be interviewed by between 3 and 5 other people, and you want to just be able to whip out your resume, and you want to be able to have lots of resumes available whenever you need to hand it to people. And the last thing, I have these little mugs that I got made at Zazzle.com. And these are like little leave behind presents. So every job interview you go on, you leave a little present with the person that you're interviewing with. And this is going to stay on their desk. This is going to be used for drinking out of, or used as a little container for people's pens. And this is just another way to stay in someone's memory, and then when a project comes up and your style kind of fits with that project, they'll give you a call. You can also get little mouse pads made, and you can give those away during your interview. And periodically during holidays like Halloween, New Year's, you could just send out these little presents to different companies that you've interviewed with, and they're going to have another little present from you and another way to kind of stay in their mind and on their radar when a project comes up that your style fits. Alrighty. Alrighty, so those are my portfolio pieces, and that's kind of what I bring. But I thought you guys might also want to take a look at a student portfolio. And so this is a short video from a sophomore who is showing off her sophomore portfolio that got her an internship at Too Faced, which is a cosmetics company.
Hi guys, it's Lindsay, and today I'm doing a very requested video. If you aren't aware, I am a junior at Chapman University studying graphic design, and I have been asked many times to show you guys my portfolio, and so I'm going to be showing you what my current portfolio looks like that I finished at the end of last year. So it is a tiny bit outdated since I've done more projects since. This is the finished portfolio that I used to apply to my internship that I had this past summer with Too Faced. But before we get into any of that, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video, which I think is very fitting because when it comes to applying to jobs, internships, even colleges, having a portfolio, having a website, having business cards, these are all important aspects that you can use just to make yourself appear more professional, show your work in the best light, and things like that. And if you're not familiar with Squarespace, it is an all-in-one platform for creating websites and online stores, and it seriously just makes it so easy. They have a ton of pretty templates. They just completely take the overwhelming, daunting idea of having your own website and just make it something super accessible, and that's something I really like about them. Click the link below for a free trial of Squarespace, and you can also get 10% off of your first purchase. Now onto my portfolio. I'm just going to be going through the PDF that I have, and once again, it is not perfect. This is old, and my next one will be better. So this is everything that I finished as of last year, and I do still like it, but there are definitely a lot of things about it that I would change. So for the cover page, I basically just have my name and this photo that Taylor Krause took for me. It's one of my favorites, and I just have like a little description of myself. Onto the first spread, I have an about section of myself and a couple paragraphs about where I'm from and my background with art and all of that, and I have a quote about graphic design that I love that says, "I'm going to make everything around me beautiful, that will be my life." On the page opposite of that, I have a short write-up of my personal design philosophy, just like the things that I think about when I'm approaching a piece and some of my inspirations. So onto the first project, I have a couple maps that I created in my information design class. This one is for the X Games Norway event, and I personally really love how this turned out. I think my favorite thing about it honestly is the color palette, but it just really ended up coming out how I pictured it with all of the flat vectors and things like that. The first map I have shows how to get to the event place from the airport, and there's like a couple different routes you can take and how long they'll take. And then the second map I did is an event map, and that one shows like where the different events are happening. All of this of course is fake. So as you can see with each of these, I have like a decent amount of text, which is one thing I probably will change for the future, just if you want to note that. Also, it really helps to not put page numbers, because then when this is printed out, you can easily switch them out if you want to like change the organization, because you always want to have like strong ones in the beginning and stuff like that. But anyways, next onto a typeface that I created in my typography class. This was made all out of pixels, and I've done a lot more intense typeface creation since then, so like looking back at this is like kind of heartwarming. But I do, honestly, I really love how this turned out. I used a lot of like math to make sure that they were like perfect. So this project spans about 3 spreads, but it begins with my logo and brand identity development I did for them. So there is like the new logo and color palette. First I start out with just like the letterhead, the envelope, the business card, whatever. So that is the first spread. Then the next spread is all about the new menu for them, since they are a restaurant. I did print this out and everything, so like I do have a physical menu, but there are just like the digital files of them with all the food items. I also included a spread on the process that I went through when it came to coming to my final designs, and although I definitely would change how I laid this out looking back, I think it is a great idea to show process in your portfolio, because people want to know that you're going to start out with like a ton of sketches and really put a lot of thought into your work. The next project I included in here is still one of my favorites that I have ever done, and it is a redesign of Poland's currency. And I chose Poland because I'm Polish, but this was one of the projects we did in our class, and I just was really happy with how it turned out. So here's what the finished currency looks like, and there is a ton of research and everything behind all of the choices that I made, but I will spare you guys that today so you can just look at it. But it has the poppy, which is the national flower, and that is a famous composer that is from Poland. I also included a process page where I showed my mood board and my original sketches of the dollar bills, and then I included a closer up version where you can see the transition from hand-drawn to digital. Next I have a couple spreads on patterns that I made in my color class, and I seriously love this project. You guys have probably seen some of these patterns before if you follow me on Twitter, but basically it's just a self-branded collection of patterns that I made, and here is the collection all together. So I named it Cosmic Goth, and it is Hopeless Romantic, Star-Crossed, and Laced Up. We had to name them and everything, but I seriously love these and I use them on my own branding all the time. On the outside of my physical portfolio, I actually have the star-crossed pattern on the spine of it, which is really cute. And then again, I have a process page on how I created the patterns in like the vector for the little Converse. I showed it up close, which I thought was fun. And I have a mood board that I used when it came to kind of like defining my personal style and like figuring out how I was going to do a self-branded collection. So that's just like some of my inspirations when it came to that project. And then the last page is just a contact form with another photo that Taylor Krause took of me. So that's my finished portfolio, and when I went to go interview, I actually brought it physically in a big folder, and they really appreciated seeing it so large because it was printed, I think, on 11 by 17, so each page is like huge, and they said that that really stood out. If not, just bringing it in on a laptop or smaller printer paper or on an iPad where you can flip through it is like totally a great idea. Just definitely come prepared, just in case they haven't received it via email or something like that. And then a lot of people wanted to know what I did at Too Faced and if I enjoyed it, and I would like to say yes, I enjoyed it. I absolutely loved it. The facility itself, like the office, if you've never seen it, is amazing. There is a office tour, I believe, on their YouTube channel. It is just so extravagant and pink and fun. Like, they really do a great job just on the decor of the office itself. It really just makes it such a comfortable and like fun place to work because it's very open and just like fun spirited. So I really loved that about it. I got to do a lot of backdrops for events and other just like pieces that go with like events that are happening, like a photo wall backdrop or like photo props, or just like a card that would go with like a Sephora gift set. That was one thing I did. There were just like a bunch of little random things that they needed me to do, but I really enjoyed it. This was also my first internship ever, and being around people that are just so fast and talented at what they do on the computer was an awesome experience. I picked up so many like key commands and like different shortcuts here and there that I had never known about, especially in Photoshop, because like that's not really my strong suit, but I feel a lot more comfortable in it now after I've done so many more mock-ups and so many more projects for them through it. So yeah, that was awesome. Honestly, anywhere you can get an internship is just great experience because you'll learn more about where you want to work and what kind of work you like doing. So that's pretty much everything I have to say today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did, and if you are interested in checking out Squarespace and getting your free trial, please use the link below. As usual, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all with a new video very soon. Bye guys!
Alrighty, So I'm going to open up the rest of the class to questions. If you guys have any, make use of my time. I am here to help you. And if you just want to dive in and get started on your assignments, remember, I'm going to have a multi-session on Friday and Saturday at the same time. So you can come in and you can get one-on-one help from me. Thank you, Nirel, and thank you everyone for coming and for doing such fantastic work. Just keep up the amazing work and, follow directions and email me if you get stuck, and just remember I'm here for you.